The fluorescent lights of Green Mart flickered faintly overhead as Michael Hayes pushed his cart toward the checkout line. It was a rainy Tuesday evening, and he was tired after a long day at the auto repair shop. His jeans were smeared with grease, his hands rough and cracked, and his eyes carried the weariness of a man used to hard work and little reward. As he waited in line, he noticed the woman ahead of him. She looked anxious, fumbling through her purse with trembling fingers. Her groceries were modest: milk, bread, rice, a carton of eggs, and a few apples. But when the cashier read the total, her face turned pale. I, I thought I had enough," she whispered, pulling out a crumpled $5 bill and some loose coins. The cashier looked uncomfortable. A line was forming and people behind her shifted impatiently. The woman's young daughter tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, can we get the apples?" she asked softly. The woman's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, sweetie. We'll put some things back." Michael's chest tightened. He had seen enough hardship in his own life. He'd grown up poor, raised by a single mother who often had to choose between rent and groceries. He knew the shame in her eyes. Without overthinking, he stepped forward. "Don't worry about it. I'll cover it," he said, sliding his debit card across the counter. The woman turned to him, stunned. No, I can't let you do that." "It's nothing," Michael interrupted gently. "I've had help before. We all need it sometimes." Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered, "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to us." Her daughter gave Michael a shy smile. "You're like a superhero." Michael chuckled, though he didn't feel like one. To him, it was a small gesture, barely $50. But to that woman and her little girl, it was everything. He never asked their names, and after they left, he thought little more of it. Life moved on. Michael kept working at the auto shop, fixing cars by day and reading detective novels at night. He never got rich, but he found quiet satisfaction in his routines. His mother passed away, leaving him lonelier, and though he had friends at work, he remained unmarried. One night, nearly 10 years after that moment in the grocery store, Michael was driving home on the wet highway when headlights suddenly swerved into his lane. He had no time to react. Metal collided with a deafening screech, and his truck spun across the asphalt before slamming into a guardrail. When everything stopped, his vision blurred. Pain radiated through his chest. He couldn't breathe. Darkness closed in. The world became sirens, shouts, and then nothing. Michael woke to the steady beep of machines. White walls surrounded him. Tubes and wires snaked from his body. His ribs ached with every breath, and confusion clouded his thoughts. "You're lucky to be alive," said a calm, professional voice. Michael turned his head slightly. A doctor stood beside his bed, a young woman in her early 30s with kind but sharp eyes. She adjusted the IV drip, her movements precise yet gentle. "I'm Dr. Sophia Miller. I was on call when they brought you in after the accident. It was bad, but you pulled through." Michael tried to thank her, but his voice cracked. I thought I was gone." "You almost were," Sophia admitted, "but you weren't alone." Something about her voice stirred a faint memory, though his foggy mind couldn't place it. Over the next few weeks, Sophia checked on him often, more than most doctors would. She always offered encouraging words, ensuring he had the best care. Michael felt an odd familiarity in her presence, though he couldn't explain why. One afternoon, when he was strong enough to sit upright, Sophia entered his room holding a small paper bag. She said with a smile, "I brought you something," handing it over. Inside were fresh apples. Michael frowned in confusion. Apples? Her smile deepened. "You probably don't remember me, but I remember you." And then it hit him. Her eyes, the way she looked at him now, memories of a nervous mother, a little girl tugging at her sleeve, a grocery store years ago. You were that little girl." His voice cracked. "Yes," Sophia nodded, her eyes shining. "I was 10 years old. You paid for our groceries when my mom couldn't. That night, you saved us from going hungry. I never forgot your face or your kindness. It's one of the reasons I wanted to become a doctor, to help others the way you helped us." Michael's breath caught in his throat. "And now, you saved me." "Yes," Sophia said softly. "I guess life came full circle." From that day on, Michael and Sophia formed a bond neither had expected. She would stop by after her shifts, sometimes bringing him books, other times just sitting with him to talk. She told him how her mother eventually got back on her feet, working 2 jobs to support her through school. Sophia had earned scholarships, studied tirelessly, and pushed herself into medicine. "But I never forgot that stranger who made me feel seen when we were invisible." Michael, humbled, often shook his head. "It was just groceries. Anyone would have done it." "No," Sophia replied firmly, "not anyone. Most people turned away. You stepped forward." When he was finally discharged, Michael struggled with gratitude. How could he ever repay someone who had literally saved his life? "You already did," Sophia reminded him gently. "Years ago, when you helped my mom. This was just my chance to give back." Recovery wasn't easy. Michael had months of physical therapy ahead, and at times the weight of loneliness bore down on him harder than the pain of broken ribs. But Sophia refused to let him drift into despair. She visited often, sometimes dragging him out for short walks once he was able, other times sharing stories from the hospital. She brought laughter back into his life. One day, sitting in his living room, she teased him, "You could have picked a less dramatic way to run into me again." Michael chuckled. "What can I say? I like making an entrance." Slowly, what began as gratitude deepened into something more. Their conversations stretched into evenings, their silences became comfortable, and Michael found himself looking forward to her presence in a way he hadn't for years. Sophia, too, seemed drawn to him, not for what he had done years ago, but for who he was now. Steady, humble, kind. One autumn evening, as golden leaves scattered across the sidewalk, Michael and Sophia sat outside a small cafe. She sipped her coffee while he toyed with his tea, nerves running through him. "Sophia," he said slowly, "do you ever think about how one small moment can change everything?" "All the time," she replied softly. "If you hadn't helped us that night, I don't know what path my life would have taken. And if I hadn't been at the hospital when you came in—" She trailed off, smiling. Michael reached across the table, his rough hand covering hers. "I'm glad our paths crossed again." "So am I," she whispered. Years earlier, one act of kindness had filled an empty grocery bag. Years later, it had filled 2 lives with hope, healing, and a bond stronger than fate itself. Kindness is never wasted. A single act, no matter how small, can ripple through time in ways we cannot imagine. Michael had paid for a stranger's groceries, thinking little of it, but that same stranger, now a doctor, saved his life. What we give freely today may return to us tomorrow, multiplied in ways that heal not just the body, but the heart.